In my last video, I talked about how hard it is to write a book, how it took me years to finish one, how I hear from writers on a daily basis who are struggling with the writing process, and yet they feel completely alone. So if you haven't watched the video, please press pause, go watch it. It's right there, or maybe right there, one of those. I'll also put a link in the description. Today, I want to talk about why it's hard and specifically what people do wrong when they're trying to write a book that actually makes it harder for them to finish. Because there are 10 things that I see people try when they're struggling to finish writing a book that don't work. And I know these intimately because I've tried them all, usually more than once. And here's the thing, it's inevitable that you're going to run into some problems when you're writing a book. Like I talked about in my last video, writing a book is really hard. But the dangerous thing is that the more of these failed tactics that you try, the more you're destined to fail even more. And the more you fail, the more aggravated you'll get. And eventually it can start to feel like you'll never finish, that you don't have the discipline, or that you're not a good writer, that you don't have it in you to finish a book. But the reality is that it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your skill level or even your discipline. It really is just a failure of process. You're trying the wrong things that will inevitably lead you to failure. So what are the 10 things? As I get into them, take note of which you've tried and let me know in the comments. Now, the first and most obvious tactic that people use to try to write a book that doesn't work is to apply more willpower. They think if only they can force themselves to sit down in the chair and write, they'll be able to finish. And the problem is that relying on willpower alone is exhausting. You're constantly fighting with yourself, and it can easily lead you to feeling burnt out. Don't get me wrong, you can't finish a book without some willpower, but willpower alone isn't enough to finish your book. The second tactic that people use to try to write a book that doesn't work is free writing. In other words, they just start writing. And here I want to say, no offense to Julia Cameron, but morning pages are one of the best ways to never write a book. There are so many benefits to free writing. It can unlock creativity. It can get you over some of your perfectionism, but you can't free write your way to a finished book. You also have to, guess what? Write your book. I know way too many writers who have been daily devotees to the artist's way for years and yet have never finished the projects that are closest to their hearts. I've personally done morning pages for months at a time, and it was great. But I also realized that it alone wasn't moving me toward my goals, and I don't want that to happen to you. The third tactic that people try to write a book that doesn't work is to try to learn on their own. As the author of several books on the writing process, not to mention hundreds of articles, podcast episodes, and YouTube videos, I know how many people consume writing tips and then never finish their books. There is so much to gain from learning about the writing process, but it can also be used as a way to procrastinate actually writing. And yes, if you're feeling guilty about this, I am talking to you. Yes, I want you to learn more about the writing process. I want you to read books. I want you to read my books. I want you to watch these YouTube videos. But books alone, YouTube videos alone, are not going to finish your books for you. The fourth tactic that people try to write a book that doesn't work is to go on a writing retreat. And to be honest, there's nothing that tickles a writer's fantasies like a writing retreat. There's even a long tradition of famous writers who go on retreats. Thoreau in Walden Pond, Hemingway in Paris, Mary Shelley in her Swiss chalet where she wrote Frankenstein. You think about this quiet cabin in the woods, preferably in upstate New York, or your Parisian atelier, and it sounds so good, right? The promise of a distraction-free environment, the chance to really focus on your writing, long walks in nature. And yet I've been on those retreats, and you'd be surprised at how many distractions you can find. Annoying insects, watching birds, the weather, books that you finally have time to read. There are plenty of reasons to go on a retreat, but a retreat alone, like all of these things, won't write your book for you. And the bigger problem is that you can't stay on a retreat forever. At some point, you have to come back from your retreat. And if you can't, then write at home when there's distractions from everyday life. You might think the only time that you can write is if you go on another retreat. But most professional writers, they don't need to go on retreats. They write book after book without retreats. And when they do travel, they go on vacation to get away from their writing. So stop fantasizing about a writing retreat solving all your problems, because it won't. The fifth tactic that people try to write a book that doesn't work is trying to get inspiration from reading. One of my biggest mistakes when I was first trying to write books is reading other books similar to the one I was trying to write as inspiration or even as literary reference. Writers read. There's no getting around the fact that you have to read books to learn how to become a better writer. Where this goes wrong is when you say, I can't write my book until. I can't write my book until I finish reading this classic book. I can't write my book until I read this latest bestseller. I can't write my book until I read every book in my genre. And here's a hint. Anytime you're saying you can't write your book until, you're procrastinating. And reading inspiring books is one of the best ways to procrastinate. And the flip side, of course, is just as bad, avoiding all books so that they don't mess with your writing style or get you distracted. But this is just another form of procrastination, and it just stalls people out. You end up not reading and not writing, and worse, not growing as a writer. Reading is good, but reading alone won't write your book for you. The sixth thing that people do that doesn't help them finish their book is trying to cram. For example, I once tried to pull an all-nighter writing my book in just one day, and I fell asleep at 3:30 a.m. and never finished that book. Let me tell you, you can write a lot in a single day, but you can't write a whole book. Another version of this is NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, in which participants attempt to write 50,000 words on a book in 1 month in November. And NaNoWriMo can be a great way of helping people focus over a short, intense burst, but there's two problems. First, people tend to write really unfocused, bad books. And two, it can leave you really burned out. And if you don't finish, you might never return to that book again. Afterward, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I just wasn't inspired enough. If only I had the right idea or the right inspiration, I would have finished. And you end up just further away from your goal. The seventh thing people do to try to finish their book that fails is to get feedback. Maybe they join a writing group or they just share their writing with everyone they know. This is perhaps the most pernicious and biggest reason people fail to finish their books. A lot of writers, as soon as they write something, anything, they want to share it. It might be the first chapter of their book, the first 10,000 words, whatever. They want to share it with their friends and family and hear what they think. Or if they're really committed, and maybe they don't have friends and family who are supportive of their writing, they join a critique group to get feedback on their work in progress. But here's the problem. Say the people you're sharing it with don't like your book. How do you stay focused on the writing when your ego is bruised from that negative feedback? You end up circling around whether they just missed it, or maybe you are a terrible writer, or maybe they're just a terrible reader. You just worry, what went wrong? Or let's say they love it. They think you're an amazing writer and they can't wait to see you as a famous bestseller. But then fresh off the high, you have to go back to writing something new. And it's not as good as the thing that just got such great feedback. Either way, you wind up going back to the earlier thing that you've written, either trying to fix it or keep up that feeling that you got when people loved it. And it just becomes harder and harder to move forward with your book. The eighth tactic that people try when they're stuck writing their book is to take classes. This is similar to learning on your own with books and articles and YouTube videos, but it's when you try to learn with others. You think, this writing class will help me finish my book. Or you think, maybe I should go back to school and get my creative writing degree. I got that degree, by the way. It didn't really work. Or you think, if only I was in an MFA program and got my master's in creative writing, surely then I would be able to become a best-selling author and, oh, by the way, finish this book that I'm working on. But I know plenty of people who now have $80,000 or more in student loans and still haven't finished their books. Again, I'm not against classes. Learning more about writing and creativity is great. Many of these programs are really special. Not all of them, of course. But I also have worked with a lot of writers who came to me during their MFA programs so they could actually finish their books. More school is not going to write your book for you. The ninth thing that writers try that messes with their book writing process is just general everyday procrastination. They say, "Oh, I'm not feeling inspired right now. I'll go scroll through Facebook until I get new ideas." Or they say, "I can't think of what to write next. I should take the day off for writing and wait for the inspiration to come to me." Or they hear Hemingway's advice to never think about writing when he wasn't doing it. So they take a long break to let their subconscious do the work. There are so many ways to procrastinate writing a book, but they all come down to not feeling ready, to not feeling prepared. At the end of the day, to not feeling good enough to write. And when you give in to that, you're saying, yes, I agree. I'm not good enough. I don't have the skills. I'm not enough for this book. So it's no wonder you feel so bad about yourself after you procrastinate because you're letting all of that negativity win. The final tactic that people try that keeps them from finishing their book, and the logical conclusion at the end of all of these attempts, is just to quit. They say, "My idea is terrible. I'm just going to start a new book with a better idea. What could go wrong?" Or they say, "Writing a book is just too hard. It's too hard for me." Or, "I'm not a real writer. I don't have what it takes. I'm not disciplined enough." And this is what makes me the saddest, because the reality is that there is a way to finish a book, a way that anyone can finish a book, a process that if you follow it, you'll do it. And I know because I tried all of these things and I failed for years. And then I tried a new way, a new process, and it worked. I finished my book. I finished more than a dozen books after that. I've helped thousands of people finish their books this way too. It's not as fun as any of these things that we've talked about. It's certainly not as cool as going on a writing retreat, but this process works. So I'm going to share about it in my next video, but I want to hear from you. Before you can use this process, you need to know what you're going to write. So that's what I want you to figure out. I have 3 questions for you to help you figure out what you're going to write. And I want you to reply below with your answers. First, tell me your idea for a book. And don't worry, I have so many ideas of my own. There's no way I'll write your book too. But I think it's powerful to share your idea with other people. So hit reply and let me know what you plan to write. Second, get specific about what you need to write. How long is your book going to be? Tell me your best guess at your book's word count. And if you're not sure, we have a guide on the Write Practice that talks about how long books in most common genres are. I'll put that in the description. And a good estimate for a novel is 80,000 to 100,000 words. And third, tell me why you want to write your book. Why is this book idea so important to you? And the last step is actually the most important, so don't skip it. Hit reply. Tell me why you want to write. Answer those other questions as well. And stay tuned for my next video. I'm going to talk about how writers actually finish great books. In the meantime, happy writing, and we'll see you soon.